Shalom. I've heard this this thing mentioned too many times. I thought I'd do a video on it. There are people out there who teach this false doctrine, saying that the dead are unconscious. I know you get this from the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know who else is out there doing it, but I thought it would be something to cover, to clarify. I think it's important. They get this idea from a couple of places in the Scriptures. The first one would be Psalms 6, verse 5. It says, "For in death there is no remembrance of you, who gives you thanks in the grave." You meaning Elohim. Who gives Elohim thanks in the grave? "For in death there is no remembrance of you." Now in the Hebrew, the word remember is not what we think of it as. To remember something, for example, to remember Elohim in the Hebrew mindset would mean to stand for Elohim, to act in his behalf, and to make an example of his teachings to others. But because it says here, "For in death there's no remembrance," I don't know what it says in other Bibles. I guess people take that and they'll say, "Oh, see, they're unconscious." Also, Psalm 115, verse 17 is used by these people, where it says, and of course I'm using the HalleluYah Scriptures, it's more accurate. Verse 17 says, "The dead do not hallelujah." A lot of people think that means that the dead don't praise Yahweh. But really, what it's saying there is that the dead don't follow Yahweh or his guidance. And that, to me, is not talking about people who are dead in the grave. It's talking about people that are dead in the sense they don't have his indwelling Kodesh spirit. Certainly they don't follow him because they don't have his spirit. The other verse they would use would be Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. It says, "All that your hand finds to do, do it with your might, for there is no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going." Who are they talking about? That would be true if you're going to Hades or Sheol. Anyway, I don't see any of those verses as anything definite that people who have passed on are completely unconscious. Furthermore, it's kind of, they're picking pretty elusive scriptures to begin with. But furthermore, there are plenty of other scriptures. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 scriptures that make it pretty plain and clear that people are not unconscious in the grave. Let's start off with Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to start with verse 15. It says, "But you are brought down to the grave, to the sides of the pit." This is talking about Satan. And verse 16 says, "Those who see you." He's brought down to the grave, to the sides of the pit. So he's in the grave. He's in the pit, Sheol, Hades. And it says, those who see you stare at you and ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook rains, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who would not open the house of his prisoners? Is this Satan? I mean, look, they're staring at him, they're pondering, and they're speaking. That's not unconsciousness. And those are people, in the grave. Let's go over to 2 Corinthians, and we want to look at chapter 5, verse 8. It says, we are of good courage, and we are well pleased rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Master. It says the body is, this verse is saying, and I have a couple others that say that the body is in the grave, but the soul and the spirit is in Shamayim. Philippians chapter 1, verse 23, for I am pressed down by the two, having a desire to depart and be with the Mashiach, which is much better. Paul's talking about, I want to die. I want to get out of here. And he's talking about, I guess I should back up to verse 19 in chapter 1 of Philippians. Paul is saying, for I know that this shall turn out for my deliverance through your prayer and the supply of the Ruach of Yeshua HaMashiach, according to my intense longing and anticipation, that I shall not be ashamed at all, but that with all boldness, as always, so now also Mashiach shall be made great in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Mashiach, and to die is gain. And if to live in the flesh is to me a fruit of work, then what shall I choose? I don't know. For verse 23, I am pressed down by the two, having a desire to depart and be with Mashiach, which is much better. Again, suggesting that the body is in the grave, but the soul and the spirit is in Shamayim. And that's the point about the harpazo. People call the rapture. There are those who've departed, and their body's in the grave, but they're in Shamayim. They're waiting for the rapture like we are. Why? To be made whole again, because their body is going to be brought up out of the grave, and they'll be joined with their body again. Those who were taken in the harpazo live in eternity, not as spirits. It's not, somebody recently said that, Yeshua is a spirit. No. Doubting Thomas came up to him. This is after he died and was resurrected. And he said to Thomas, put your finger in my wound, see if I'm not flesh and bone. Flesh and bone. That is how we will be in eternity. Acts chapter 7, verse 59 says they were stoning Stephen, as he was calling and saying, Master Yeshua, receive my spirit. And kneeling down, he cried out with a loud voice, Master, do not hold this sin against them. And having said this, he fell asleep. He passed on. But he cried out, saying, Master Yeshua, receive my spirit. His spirit's in Shamayim. He died, his body's in the grave. If we look at Matthew chapter 17, Yeshua is taking Kepha and Yaakov and his brother Yohanan. That's Peter. Most of you know James. It's Jacob. And John, Yeshua's brother, brought them up on a high mountain by themselves. Verse 2, and he was transformed before them. His face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as the light. And look, Moshe and Eliyahu, Moses and Elijah, appeared to them talking with him. Moses and Elijah are dead. Where are they? They're in Shamayim, and they're talking here with Yeshua. Take a look at Luke chapter 16, verse 22. It came to be that the beggar died and was carried by the messengers, the malachim, to the bosom of Abraham. Abraham's bosom, paradise, Shamayim. And the rich man also died and was buried. And while suffering tortures in the grave, is that unconscious? He's in the grave. Is he unconscious? He's suffering tortures. Having lifted up his eyes, he saw Abraham far away, and Elazar in his bosom. And crying out, he said, Father Abraham, have compassion on me, and send Elazar to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am suffering in this flame. Heaven and hell, Shamayim and Sheol, at this time, before Yeshua rose, and before he went back to Shamayim, Shamayim and Sheol were in the bowels of the earth. There is a great chasm between the two. And the rich man is in Sheol, hell. And he sees across the chasm, he sees Abraham and Elazar. And he cries out to him. He's suffering. He's dying of thirst. Now, finally, there's two scriptures that point at what I think is one of the most exciting things in the scriptures, and that is the fact that there are some of us living today who will never know what it's like to die. What an unusual gift. What an unusual time to be living in the world. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, starting with verse 16, because the Master himself shall come down from the Shamayim with a shout, and with the voice of a chief messenger, a chief malach, and with the trumpet of Elohim, and the dead in Mashiach shall rise first. Then we, the living, who are left over, shall be caught away together, harpazo, with them in the clouds to meet the Master in the air, and so we shall always be with the Master. So then encourage one another with these words. No physical death. To be with the Master in Shamayim forever, never knowing a physical death. Wow. Then also 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 51 says, see, I speak a secret to you. A secret. Most Bibles will say a mystery. This is something, in most Bibles says mystery, here it says secret. It's talking about something that once was a secret but is now being revealed for the first time. It says, see, I speak a secret to you. We shall not all sleep. We shall not all die, physical deaths, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet shall sound. That's the trumpet of Elohim, not the trumpet of angels, and certainly not the 7 trumpets in Revelation, which are trumpets of angels. This is the trumpet of Elohim, which we just read about in 1 Thessalonians 4:16. The trumpet of Elohim shall be sounded when they are taken up. Here it says, the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. It's saying the same thing that we saw in 1 Thessalonians. So, if anyone ever tells you that those who have passed away are unconscious in the grave until such and such time, tell them to read their Bible. You can point out all these scriptures and show them how wrong they are. And the arguments they give, from Psalms and Ecclesiastes are really wimpy. I mean, they don't even really say what these people wish they would say. And why on earth anyone would want to believe that anyway is beyond me, my friend. Shalom.